So do you want to learn how to beat each way markets with smart maths and a loophole that can't be closed? If you do, settle down because this video is for you. I'm going to lay out a clear example of an each way strategy working and show you how and why it's done. There's no BS included and I'm not holding anything back. So in case you're wondering, this is not about match betting either. In return, I only ask one thing, that you like this video and subscribe to the channel after you've seen how useful this loophole is. Thank you. So a quick disclaimer before we get started, this is not to glamorise gambling, this is for informational purposes only and to show you how you can mathematically beat the house. It will provide you with a systematic edge proven by logic and maths. Bookies are sore losers and they will eventually restrict your account for doing this. After you've seen the video in full, you'll understand why. However, it's not illegal and they will pay you out. So let's get started. So an each way bet is two bets. One bet for the selection to win and one for the selection to be placed in the race. The win part of the bet is paid at the full odds you take with your selection should it win, and for the place part, bets are settled at a fraction of the win odds, usually either a quarter or a fifth of the full odds. The number of places paid and the fractions they're settled at is dependent on the number of runners in a race and the type of race. So to win money in betting, we have to get a bigger price than something is actually worth. It's impossible to win every time, but by doing this, you will win over the longer term. The basics and numbers that are behind that are shared in a separate video, which is a link in description and also up the top here. So we know we need to get a bigger price than our bet is actually worth to win in the longer term. We also need to qualify that value. No vague opinions, feelings, or other guff that you might hear on racing channels or via bookmaker affiliates. I'll show you how that's done with an example, then I'll back it up with the maths to explain why it works, and then I'll explain where you can find these races, where this loophole works, because it happens every day, but usually there's only 5 or 6 races that qualify and some are more profitable than others. So let's move on to an example here, step by step. So we've got a race on the screen here with Bet365, the 4 PM at Chelmsford City horse race. You can see there's several runners in the race. I'll go through the race criteria afterwards once I've explained the strategy and where you'll see this, but I'm going to be focusing on Mr. Big Stuff in this instance. So his current price is 7-2, which is also 4.5 in decimals. Something that's very important I want you to bear in mind as we go throughout this example, because the numbers show us the definable value in this situation. Now if we click on Mr. Big Stuff, you'll see that the each way price that is offered to us is a quarter odds for 2 places. So we've got 2 bets to focus on here with Mr. Big Stuff. You've got the win portion at 4.5 in decimals, and then we've got the place section, which is at 1.875 for a place, being 2 places in this race. Now if I move over to Betfair's exchange for this comparison, you'll see that Mr. Big Stuff is also trading around about 4.5 on the win market there, but if we look at the place market, Mr. Big Stuff is currently trading at around about 1.67. That's very different to our 1.875 with Bet365. So what I'm showing you here is definable value between the 2 markets on the place section of this bet. This is what's known as a bad each way race. Bad for the bookmaker, not for you. And this is why it's also a loophole that they can't close. Now the outcome of this race and these sort of situations doesn't really matter depending on how you play it. We'll go for a few different options in a second as I unfold the strategy with the numbers intact in my old friend Excel here, just to make things clearer. So to reiterate, the win portion of this bet, there's no real value there. They're both priced at 4.5 on both platforms, so we're not too interested in that. What we're interested in is in the place section. So we're getting 1.875 with Bet365 and we're getting 1.67 with Betfair's exchange. That is a definable value of 0.205 between those 2 different odds. That is your margin, if you like. That is just how bookmakers price their odds and make millions of pounds every year from many different people, except you're doing it the other way around for yourself. You're exploiting it with smart maths. Now there's 4 different options that we can take in terms of playing this bet. First of all, you could just place an each way bet on it. That would give you a plus expected value bet. So over the longer term, you would expect to win by placing this bet, although variance would be quite high because of the win portion, which is also why I wouldn't advise doing it that way. Secondly, option B is to reduce our risk. So you can place the each way back with Bet365 while simultaneously laying off the win portion portion of the bet on the exchanges, so that effectively the win portion of the bet is completely cancelled out. However, you are left with that value bet, another positive expected value bet on the placed portion of this market, thus leaving you in the green over the longer term. Again, there could be some variance with that option. Thirdly, and this is probably the option that I favour most because it has the lowest amount of commission charges with the exchange also, but you could reduce all risk on this market and just leave yourself with a free position if the horse is places. So you can place the back bets with Bet365, lay off the win portion with the exchange, and lay off the liability with the exchange. So if we back for, say, I don't know, £50 each way with Bet365, we're laying off a £50 bet at 4.5 on the win market on the exchange, but we're also laying off £50 on the place market at 1.67, leaving that margin of value for a free bet for us if the horse should then go on to place. Now, the fourth option is the safest option. It has the lowest amount of variance, although you do have to pay a little bit of extra commission because you're adding more lay bets into the mix here. So we'll show you on screen how that works out, but that is basically locking in a profit. Now, to do this, you need to play different size lay bets on the exchange, which can be a little bit confusing. So I'd advise using an each way calculator if you do this, but I'll show you different outcomes. So for example, in this situation, taking the prices that we've already spoken about there, I'm going to assume you're on a 2% commission with the exchange and you've placed a £100 each way bet on this particular horse race because it gives us a nice and clear example. So if you place £100 each way with the bookie, Bet365 in this instance, you would need to place a lay bet of £100 and 45 pence on the win market and £113.64 on the place market. The reason for that comes as follows. So if the horse should win, you win £350 with the bookmaker, you also win £87.50, bearing in mind our place market odds were 1.875, and we lose our money on the exchange that we outlaid to cover that liability of £351.57 and £76.13, leaving us a total position of plus £9.80, no matter what happens. However, if the horse doesn't win and the horse places, the numbers are slightly different. With those exact same bets that you placed, you would see a £100 loss on the win market with the bookie, you would see a plus £87.50 on the place market, but you would win £98.44 on the exchange and lose £76.13 on the place market, again leaving yourself in a position of plus £9.81. That's just because of the decimal odds there. And then the final option, if the horse doesn't place at all, you lose £100 with the bookie on the win bet, you lose £100 on the place bet, but you win £98.44 on the exchange and £111.36 after commission, leaving you in a net position of £9.80. So you can see this really does work when you play it smart and take the value with this particular strategy. So please, if this video has helped you out, don't forget to tap that like button down below on the video and subscribe to the channel for future updates and strategy. So looking at the situations where this happens is the next most important thing. So I can tell you bad each way races usually happen in the following three situations. First of all, you either have one or two very short price favourites in the race. That's because they take up a large percentage of the book, warping the odds on the outside for the each way markets. Secondly, large field runners, you know, those cavalry charges that you see on a Saturday afternoon with 20 odd runners, they can be great situations. Again, it's a mathematical thing. And then finally, the crossover points between the different place terms, because people who aren't horse racing fans should bear in mind the following place terms that we'll share with you on screen. Depending on the size of the field, the terms and the fractional odds change. One top tip to maximize your profits in this situation is to focus on markets where those place terms have just changed, because that's where you get the largest edge inside the betting markets in terms of each way value. So the last problem that comes with this strategy, which I mentioned in the intro there, is the fact that bookmakers will restrict your betting accounts for doing this. They don't like it. They know that it's a loophole. They know that it can be exploited. They know that people make money consistently through doing this, and they don't like losing money. So instead of changing the way they operate, they actually just ban customers who do this. However, there are ways around this. The first one and the most obvious one might be, in the current climate, to get yourself into the shop in person and place your each way bet on the back side of the portion and lay off the rest on the exchange. Obviously the exchange doesn't limit winners, so they don't really care what you're doing. Also, you can do this across multiple providers. In person, you could do it down High Street. Online, you could do it on different tabs between different bookmakers. You do, like I say, you will find over time that they will start to restrict you if you're doing this, but it's not necessarily something that they focus on intently in the modern world. Also, if you get best odds guaranteed with these, then you can find that if the price drifts afterwards, you actually get an even more value bet, giving yourself more winnings over the longer term. Now, I hope this video has given you value. If it has, please don't forget to tap the like button down below, and also check out this video about betting strategy in the end screen, where I'll show you something different, which is equally, if not more, useful in terms of profiting.